Hello, my name is Richard Haight, and my apologies first for taking so long to get back to everybody's questions. I sent out an email asking for to hear about your spiritual travails and difficulties and challenges and questions. And my intention, of course, is to answer as many of them as possible. Those questions which feel sincere and are not trivia and that are answerable. Some questions are written too vaguely to be able to respond to, and others, the questions are they just need more information in order to answer them correctly. So there's when submitting questions, it's helpful to give some background and what your actual spiritual intention is and what your circumstances are. So if I get a question like, I'm depressed, I don't have any friends, I don't like my job, what should I do? That's going to get a very generic answer. And the first thing I would respond back is, give me more details. So it might be more appropriate to say I am on the spiritual path, but no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to, I can't seem to find a good job, or men are not attracted to me. I can't hold a relationship. We always end up arguing, that kind of stuff. I need much more specific detail. Why aren't your relationships working in your own perspective? Why do you keep losing a job in your own perspective? And then switch it. What's the perspective of the employer? What's their best argument against hiring you? That's what you need to know. What's the other person's best argument about why they don't want to date you? You need to know that authentically without defending yourself. You need to know these perspectives. If you want to navigate the world, I need to understand the perspective of other people around you, not a biased perspective that defends yourself or a biased perspective that denigrates yourself, but just what are they seeing or what are they perceiving of you? This is a lesson that is fundamental to sword training. When I take a sword position, I'm holding a sword. I need to know exactly what the other person is seeing, where they're likely to strike, where they can strike, where they can't strike. If I know where they can strike, then I know where they can't strike, right? And from there, I know what to do. It's very, 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 very obvious. As soon as you know the options of the other person and the perspective of the other person, you know how to move. So life is just like that. When we're dealing with survival, when we're dealing with mind-based structures, our jobs, relationships, that sort of stuff, the first step is always going to be awareness, so that we start to transcend mind-based limitations. And so if we're not asking these questions, what is it that people are seeing? And also, what is it that I'm seeing, actually? Beyond the bias, beyond the projections, what's actually being presented in front of me, seeing directly. And then when you ask the question, be very specific with yourself. The art of questioning, I call it the sacred question. It really is an art that needs to be practiced. And, asking questions is really not something that we are encouraged typically to do in life. And so most of us are going to be highly unskilled in our questioning. The questions we ask will be too vague, or maybe they're just laden with assumption and bias that are going to make it so an answer is impossible. And the only way to become better at questioning is to actually start asking questions and then searching out answers. And then you'll start to have to refine your questions so that you can actually get more success in finding answers. Now, the most useful sacred questions typically deal with the inner space. Why is there this constant anxiety? Better question would be, what could be done to relieve, what could be done within this to lessen that anxiety? And then, of course, actually try it out and see if it works. If it doesn't, the question or the answer was not quite precise. The more precise the question, the better the answer, the more profound the result will be. So with questions to me, that very specific questions are helpful. For example, I'm a Christian, giving your background, I'm a Christian, and the Bible says this, you're saying that, I'm confused between the two, what do you think about this? That sort of thing is very, very helpful. Or, I'm following the spiritual path, but I have a strong sexual desire, and I find myself repressing that sexual desire. Should I be, more free in my sexuality? Would it be helpful to, that's on my spiritual path? Would that be helpful? Or should I be repressing my spirituality or something else? Is there another option? Those are very, very helpful. It'd be very, very helpful for you. And I suspect if your question is really well developed, if you feel your way through it, a lot of times when you ask the question, the answer will just come. You'll know it. And this is how the art of questioning is in large part how I discovered what it is that I've discovered or awakened. It was the art of questioning. And so when refining the question, once it was sufficiently refined, the answer was just obvious. It was just obvious. And then you could search out and explore that answer, and you find that it bears fruit. A question that's not so carefully developed and felt through is going to produce an answer that's going to not produce results. So the sacred question is very, very helpful to practice. This is something that is actually extraordinarily natural. Children do this all the time, and all they need is a little encouragement and a little assistance in refining their questions as they develop, as the brain matures, to be able to ask more refined questions and feel their way through the process. A little bit of support in that will take them a long ways. What typically happens, almost without fail, is that we, since we as adults get annoyed by the questions, we maybe don't know the answers to those questions, and we feel like we have to answer those questions. We might actually just try to get them to stop asking questions. This is typically what occurs. The schooling system creates that phenomenon. And so curiosity is doused or smothered out, and the development of the sacred question is curtailed. So I hope that helps. I'd love to hear your questions. I don't want people to be at all shy about asking questions. If you ask a question that is just not something that it's not formulated enough to be able to give a useful answer to, or to be able to work with in any way, I can just reply back with with a request for more refinement. I might ask quite specifically what you're referring to. There's no judgment in that. There's nothing wrong with that. I had to go through this process myself. This is something I believe we just have to go through, and until we realize that it's essential to be able to actually articulate our questions well, we will continue to not do so, or not ask questions at all. So this is in a way kind of a service that I'm offering to help you bring up your capacity to both ask very refined and well-developed questions, but also then awaken to the answers, because those answers oftentimes will just flash in once the questions are really well developed, and especially if they're developed from a level of soul, not mind. So developed from mind only, that flash can't occur. So that we want that tether of that question when it's being formulated, it's tethered to a deep inner feeling. And then oftentimes the answer just flashes in. So go ahead and feel free to ask your questions, or let me know your situations, and then we'll just refine as we go. And thank you so much. Bye-bye.